Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome to the East-West Show. Jack Chow is hosting with the G&E TV. For several times into this year, we paid attention to the community for its safety and public safety, public security versus the bad laws. The bad laws, by bad laws, I mean that laws that releases or early release the criminals on the streets. Some are felon, serious felon, that causes more problems. Lots of people die from that action. So we say public safety and security versus the bad law. That is our subject number one. Our subject number two today is talking about the humanitarian activities, because in West Covina you do see a lot going on. So today with me is my good friend, my brother kind of friend, Mr. Joe Gardner. Welcome, sir, to the show.
Always great to be here, Jack.
Thank you. Mr. Joe Gardner is the one that earns my respect profoundly. He put up 27 of his glorious years service in the Santa Monica PD, police department, and he had put his life in the line for that safety of that very community of Santa Monica. For 27 years is not a short time. 27 years can grow a tall man, right? Well, that's a lot of time. Anyway, coming home, he never stopped. He picked up his job for doing unpaid job, no money, unpaid job for nonprofit for program Meals on Wheels, and he travels with his people, bringing food to the needy families. Either they are sick, or they are too old to cook, or they are confined, not able to walk out of the house, so on and so forth. And putting them together is a person who cares about the community, be it community safety, be it the community need in terms of food. He is the one. So for that, I give you 2 thumbs up, sir, with lots of respect.
Thank you, Jack. Very kind of you.
I'm a person that I have a big heart but very small wallet. I earn enough to pay my bill, no extra, that's it.
Yeah.
Right? And saving account is a joke. So that's me. All right. Good now. Should I improve? I'll join you.
Well, I probably right in the same boat with you. You know?
Very good, very good. Okay, now, so let's talk about the public safety versus the bad law. To lots of my audience who just turned on, right, this TV program, who happen to be, for the first time, watching the show with Mr. Joe Gardner, we might owe them explanation about bad laws. What is the definition of bad laws? What did the bad laws do? What do the bad laws still do? And then the consequences, please.
Well, I think the bad laws are those that harm our community. You know, maybe they weren't well intended, but the problem with some of these laws that come out of Sacramento, and it'd be interesting to note, there are probably about 2,900 new bills that were presented by the legislature in this last cycle of the legislature. And so many of those laws do harm to the community. As we saw in AB 109,
AB 109
it's created some serious problems.
Very notorious.
Right, it has.
Very notorious, yeah.
You know, it's put a lot of criminals back out on the street. You know, it was probably well intended and thought of a way to save money for the state.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so, because I don't see any money saved.
No.
Right?
No, it just got transferred to other people.
Yeah, I really doubt about the intention. Go ahead,
yeah.
Please.
And you know, we had some propositions that went on the ballot. Prop 47 and Prop 57 both are just compounding the problems related to crime and justice.
Both coordinate with AB 109.
Yeah,
the bad
absolutely.
Laws, right?
Yeah.
Bad laws with the bad propositions and they work together.
Right.
And then they did not stop. They continue proposing for bad laws. Am I right?
Right. Now the new bail one, the one that's going to get rid of bail or lower bail.
What is that, please?
Well, it's not, I don't know the actual title of the law, but there is a law circulating in the legislature.
The law already or bill?
No, it's being proposed. So
Being
fortunately, it
proposed,
hasn't
okay.
passed yet. But the concept is to lower bail because they think bail is too high. You know, if somebody gets arrested, they have to bail out, or they could bail out of custody, provide security. Well, there's a legislator in Sacramento who wants to get rid of portions of that law, which will make it easier for those who commit crimes to stay out on the street. So
I see. I hope someday they end up, instead of bailing, they probably give them a award or something. Right?
Makes you think, huh?
Yeah, but well, of course, we know. If you do not stop pushing that way, stop them pushing that way, it might happen someday, somehow, anyway.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, to you or understanding, because you're in the law enforcement field for so many years, almost a major part of your life, so you know how exactly this issue is so important.
Right.
Right? Because you have a law to abide by. When the law is changed, the foundation is shaken.
Right.
Am I right?
Yes.
So, and then as a consequence, what do we see?
Well, you see higher rates in crime. You know, people feel less safe in their communities. They've become victims of crime where they maybe never were before. We have a real disturbing element in some of our communities where crime seems to run rampant. And so I think people are very concerned about that. They don't feel as safe as they did maybe 10 years ago. And that's a question you could ask a lot of people.
And also, you heard about the news yesterday about the guy who killed a Whittier officer.
Right.
He pleaded not guilty.
Right.
He even pleaded not guilty for killing.
Very sad case.
And his own cousin in the morning, and an officer in the afternoon, and that person was exactly released according to the programs guided by AB 109.
Right. He couldn't get back into prison.
And he couldn't get back to prison because he's elevated, right? And he can overcome the hurdle to get into, so he is not going back. And in court, our system gives him a chance or an opportunity to plead, not only plead guilty, but plead not guilty.
Right. Well, everybody has a right to representation in the courts, and often that's a ploy to if you're accused of a serious crime, is to not plead guilty initially, so that you go through the process of adjudication through the courts. But in this case, it's a particularly heinous case. You have a lot of law enforcement people and community members very upset, you know, that this happened, and this seemingly this criminal, you know, was smiling, and you thought it was a joke to be in court. So very sad case.
Right, okay. And I mean, to your knowledge, what had been wrong in the first place? Why would we have to see this continuously?
I think it centers around what they call flash incarceration, where if this individual has come to the attention of law enforcement before, and he's on parole or probation, you know, he may be taken into custody temporarily. The police do their job in the field, but when later on, when the reports are done and he's sitting in custody and decisions are made about whether he should go back to jail or prison for his crime, often not, though seemingly they get back out again. Mr. Mejia, I use the term loosely, came to the attention of law enforcement before probably 5 different times.
Yes.
And each and every time.
Within 2 months. I remember, within 2 months.
Right, so he was put into this system of flash incarceration and then later released.
I'm having a hard time understanding why a system supported by taxpayers' money, who pay so much tax, yet cannot hold to this kind of person who goes in and out of prison for 5 times, a serious felon.
Right.
Why would this system allow him to walk on straight, allow him to kill 2 more people still?
Yeah, it's a terrible case. The way the rules were written in AB 109 allow for him to not go back to prison for a variety of circumstances.
Okay.
He has to fit a criteria. It used to be much simpler. You know, if you had somebody that was on parole or probation years ago, you know, that would be it. You'd call their parole agent or their probation officer, and they would say simply, oh yeah, keep them in custody.
You just mentioned a flash incarceration. That's probably one of the biggest problems.
Yeah.
All right. And you have a jail. The jail, well, keeps the bad guys in,
Right.
and you have to deter. Otherwise, you go in jail, right?
Right.
And then that's why you flash the badge, not the incarceration.
Right.
You know that the law is there. When law loses its function of deterring, and then what you're talking about? What are you talking about?
And that's probably the most important part of this whole process, and what we're seeing nowadays is a lack of respect for the law. Criminals know this. They know that they could get a free pass, that if they get arrested, there's a good chance they won't serve any real time.
Our laws are like a
back.
pizza.
Yeah.
Our laws are like a pizza dough, right? They can stretch it
Right.
to any size, or they can condense it, whatever way.
Right.
But when laws becoming that in nature, and you see the consequence, you'll be ready to bear with the consequences. My dear audience, today with my good friend Joe Gardner, a former Santa Monica PD officer for 27 glorious years, we're talking about Californian bad laws versus the consequences we see, that officers get killed, houses get robbed, money get robbed, and so on and so forth, right? So those are the bad guys who are not supposed to be on the street, yet they are on the street due to the bad laws. So stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Hello, my dear folks. Welcome back to the show. My lovely friends, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the discussion about our California versus the bad laws, about the consequences we see versus the bad laws. With the bad laws, AB 109, Proposition 47, and 57, and so many in cooking, we're about to say, we have seen, we'll see, and we're about to see more and more bad consequences. And you're talking about not a few dollars being robbed, you're talking about lives taken sometimes, quite often they're not, right? So with me today, in this discussion about bad laws versus the consequences of public safety and security, is my good friend Joe Gardner. He is a glorious PD officer for 27 years. Down back home, when retiring, he never takes a respite. He went on to his many projects. One of the projects, I believe, is to call upon people, to command people to pay attention to the fact of the bad laws that produces the environment, that produces the bad environment in which our security, community security, is no longer the way it used to be, right? So I recall that you have a movement for either a signature gathering or whatever to overturn those laws. And I would like to find out your efforts, please, and your folks' efforts, please.
Well, it's quite a challenge, Jack. It takes a lot of work, but I've been advocating and talking to some key people about reforming the criminal justice system in California. And I think it really requires citizens to get involved, to really understand the problems that exist and work together to try and change the way those problems are, so that we can make some improvements.
Okay.
And so, you know, as time goes on here, I continue to work on that effort to try and persuade folks to support the concept of criminal justice reform. And I think if somebody commits a crime, they should pay or take responsibility for that crime, as it always has been, right? No matter what scope of life or part of society, you know, we always had a respect for the law in years past, and I think now it's deteriorated to the extent that our communities, our economy, there's a ripple effect because of crime. And so I think, you know, it's time that we make some valiant effort to try and reform.
It is high time we did so. It's high time we did so.
Absolutely.
I understand that there are lots of people. I believe the majority of our community members do not like the bad laws. It's simply because they do not like bad guys, right, to walk on the same street with them. And it is just that they need to be notified. They do not know. They do not know. So it looks that it is a media job that we need to get involved. We need to get involved a lot more than we do. Of course we do. When I look at myself, that I get involved more than other media, but there is still room of doing more, right? I want to do more. I want to bring to lots of people's attention about why you're not safe, because there are bad guys on the street. Why there are bad guys on the street? Because they are released. Why are they not in prison? Because the laws don't keep them.
No,
right? So,
that's correct.
Are you doing this like a lone wolf, quote unquote, or you have an organization doing so?
Right now, it's just me and people that I've talked to. As I said, I'm trying to build a coalition of folks to really participate in this process.
Okay.
And you know, I always have to admire you, Jack, because you're community-based in what you do and getting the message out about things that are happening in the community. So I really enjoy the coming to participate in your show and EDI Media for what it does for the city of West Covina and points beyond.
Yes.
So. And so I think it's just getting the word out and really talking to people and persuading others, some of our politicians, to get involved.
In other words, it's just a matter of time. Right? Just a matter of time. When people start to realize why and where the danger comes from, they would, of course, jump on the conclusion and say, hey, let's get rid of it. Right? Let's get rid of it. It's just a matter of time for them to learn, to know. And my dear audience, to you folks out there, you hear what we are saying, right? And you see what are the consequences that we are experiencing now. And this is all caused by bad laws such as AB 109 and the Proposition 47 and 57. Each of them working in accordance with the bad law, right? So, for that bad law, though, it has always a political whatever environment. Under what political environment was that law given birth to?
Well, I think, you know, obviously in Sacramento there is an imbalance of power. You have one majority party and a smaller minority party that work in Sacramento. And unfortunately, the Democrats, the majority party, have really, you know, have taken a bad turn, I think. You know, it's not so much about their party affiliation, but the mindset of some of those folks up there who really say, look, well, let's offload this problem to the local communities. And that's exactly what AB 109 was. You know, we have a problem in our state prison system, in our state system. Let's offload the problem to the local jurisdictions so they can pay for it. And that's how this started. And I think throughout, you know, the last few years since 2011, we've seen that trend where they want to shift more of the burden down to local communities, which is okay because in some concepts local control is important, but if you don't provide the support, the financing, the money to help those local communities, they're they're going to throw up their hands and say, we can't do this. We don't have the capability. So
okay, now I believe that they are aware of the fact that in addition to money, you talk about money, right? It is a money-driven direction that you want to save money, you want to shrink the jail system, you want to shrink the whole system so that you have to let go somebody, right? Okay, now, are they as politicians aware of the fact that when you release, everybody you release, you add one danger to the community?
I think they are aware of it, but they're less concerned about it. It's hard to put your finger on it, but I think many of our politicians, they're out of touch with their communities. If you if you understood the problem and you spoke to the local folks within your assembly district or your state senate district, you would probably come to the conclusion real quick that they're not happy about the way things are. But others are driven by their own agenda. They have either a social push to do something in Sacramento to change things, which I guess is noble to some extent, but oftentimes there's not enough thought given to the impact, the residual effect of what their decisions might be to put forward a law. So I think we're facing that problem where we have politicians that are just out of touch. They just don't understand and don't really see the problem as a huge one for our communities.
That's really a big problem. The bigger problem lies in the fact that you have a wrong concept, right? Conceptually, the whole system is wrong because you are money-driven, right? And even for money, though, money is allocated and not the way that the voters want it. I give you examples. The other day, I heard a discussion over the radio program. They say how many times they find their money allocated the way that they want it, that the voters want it. You know the result? None.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
The result is none.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Not one time. And then the coordinator challenged the panels. They say, hey, I want you, let me reverse my question. Right? And it says anybody can give you one time, one example, that will be enough of the money being rightly allocated.
Right.
So nobody can meet the challenge. So
yeah, and one you're talking about, I think, has to do with the state roads.
Yes.
Fixing
That's
our roads.
That's what I refer to.
Every time we get a tax increase and we maybe will authorize it increase or vote for it or whatever, we think the money's going to that pot that's going to fix the roads and take care of our infrastructure, and then we find out many years later the money never made it there or it was misdirected to something else. Yeah. And that's very frustrating to taxpayers.
And that's why lots of people say next time when we do say a measure of collecting money, of increase our tax, we have to make sure a law goes along with it to secure the money for usage.
Right.
And any violence of that goes to jail. How about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's appropriate.
Right.
I mean, misappropriation of money and taking money in a business, you would probably be criminally charged for that.
Yeah, that's criminally charged.
But it doesn't happen seemingly.
And that is a business. California state is a business.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have a big manager there, and then he signs the check.
Yep,
right?
You're correct.
So, and somebody. Like last time you and I were on the show, we talk about that we want to find somebody responsible for that. Right. We want to nail somebody, right? Number one, we want to nail somebody why the money didn't go to where it's supposed to be. And now you're using money as an excuse to create laws that hurt the community. Yeah. And it goes in a negative cycle, goes on and on, until someday we're all surrounded by bad guys.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, people should be held accountable and responsible for their misdeeds or their misdirection of funding.
My dear audiences, I call upon you to support my dear friend, Joe Gardner. He is acting on his own now, yet I believe it's just a matter of time. Over time, it will explode. It's just like a sparkle, right? You make and any huge fire, no matter how big, started with a sparkle. A sparkle will do. All you need to do is to let people know, let lots of people be aware of the fact that our community safety is at hand with the politicians. And your safety, your life, your concern is at the hand of the politicians. So we want to make sure that we are the concerned citizens of California because we love ourselves, all right? So let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we'll continue talking on our second issue today, the humanitarianism. So stay with us, please. We will be right back. Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow on the East West with G&E TV. At G&E TV, we pay attention to our community. And sometimes, every time, when there's a chance, when chances allow, we go pick up those small, even the smallest issues of the community. Of course, most of the time, we are kind of disrupted by big major things, but we'll still come back. Now we're coming back to West Covina. In West Covina, there's a program called Meals on Wheels, directed, led by this wonderful guy, my dear friend, Joe Gardner. For that, I give you 2 thumbs up.
Thanks, Chuck.
Right, very good. Mr. Joe Gardner, like I said before, a former Santa Monica PD officer for 27 years. Upon retiring, he picks up a no money, no pay position, being president of the Meals on Wheels problem to help. And yet, for the last 2 weeks, people are busy talking about China, what China is doing. And they promote a strategy of Asian economic development strategy called the Belt and the Road. Namely, they're using their surplus of money to scatter around to the countries and the regions where they are unlucky or less lucky to develop. They are undeveloped, namely, and with their infrastructures, with their water, with their transportation, with their very basic needs, right? So by doing so, China gets a very high reputation. That reminds me of Mr. Joe Gardner, exactly, almost right away. Say, hey, Joe is doing the same thing. Only a country and an individual, all right? So Joe, I especially invite you to talk about what you have been doing with the Meals on Wheels, please.
Well, sometimes I refer to myself as the richest man in town, and that's not by wealth, but by the opportunities to meet new people and to get involved in projects within my community. And one of those projects that I've been, very happy to be a part of was Meals on Wheels Industry, Inc. And Meals on Wheels, what it does is it provide very low-cost meals to those who could not otherwise afford meals. We go to Citrus Valley Health Partners, Queen of the Valley Hospital, and we get the meals from there, and then we take them to those folks who can't prepare meals for themselves. And you mentioned those people that would probably fit in that criteria. Is there elderly people who can't prepare meals safely for themselves, or those that are disabled, or have mobility issues, or unable to leave the house, housebound people. And so it's been really gratifying to be part of this program, because it's not just the delivery of the meals to those people in need, but it's also an opportunity to maybe help somebody who would never probably see anybody else the rest of the day except for that person, that volunteer that drops off that meal. So I commend the 40+ volunteers that we have in our organization that do that effort, and we're very proud of, since 1983, we've been doing this effort of Meals on Wheels. And I'm just one of a long line of people who've been in leadership of that organization. But I'm so grateful to know the people that are part of this Meals on Wheels industry, Inc.
I personally respect those people, those kind of people.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you are talking about a world where you promote the jungle culture, right? The jungle laws. When you have people like whoever, I hate to mention the name or names, say they can make say $100 million overnight, right?
Right.
Of course, I believe, I agree. I believe that they did it, right? But there must be somebody who go out or broke so that they can make 100 million. See, we're in the stock market, right?
Right.
I don't get my money. You don't. If you do not jump over the window, you have to have somebody jumping over the window to let the remainder be rich. Am I right?
Well, yeah, I guess
By
so.
logic, it's the same way. By
absolutely.
logic, it's the same thing. You have this fixed amount of dollars there, and there has to be somebody jumping over the window.
The person that'll take the risk, or person that will do the effort. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And to benefit those, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, that's what I call, in my term, the jungle culture. And it is being promoted to the most ways, the most hilarious ways, okay? Now, I challenge you, you go to bookstore, you just take a look along the bookshelves, you'll find those kind of books that teaches you how to make $1 million or $100 million overnight.
The get rich quick book.
Get rich quick. And I also, with the same extent, I'm challenging you, if you would find from the same shelves of books, any book talking about Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I getting out of my mind or deeper in my mind?
No, I think you're right there. And we're the volunteers that do any of these civic organizations. They're the unsung heroes of the community. You know, they invest their time and their resources and talents to help out others. And, and it could be very rewarding, more than money could ever give you. So
that's exactly the contrary to the jungle culture, to the jungle law. Right? So we are, matter of fact, not in a jungle. We're in a civilized society. Right. In a civilized society, we have to convince ourselves there are lucky people, there are less lucky people, there are fortunate people, there are less fortunate people. Right. To those less fortunate, come on, it's your own problem, okay?
Right.
And there is one story talking about this professor in class trying to teach his students. So from now on, within 20 years, if you do not make $1 million, do not even come back see me. Wow. I don't have a student like you, something like that. And these are very misleading.
Yeah.
Do
they
you
can be.
So?
Yeah,
very misleading. Okay.
Of course.
Now I'm surprised. I'm quite surprised. I'm quite happy that under such a system, in such a world, that there are still people like Joe. And I believe every single one of your 40-something followers deserve a big credit.
Yeah.
Give me some names, please.
Well, you have, Martha and Charles House, Dorothy Pollack, Vanita Sadowski. There are so many people that go and do this effort every day. They go to the hospital and they will pick up the meals, or they'll just simply volunteer wherever they can to help the organization. And in the end, we're very proud of each and every one of them. And many of them have been there for 20, 25 years. You know, I'm kind of the younger guy who hasn't been there as long, but I'm always amazed that these people have been part of this Meals on Wheels organization for 20, 25 years plus, you know.
And I would say China is doing the same thing to those countries, less advanced countries. They say, here's the money, where is your problem? Well, let me fix it for you. And of course, the money is loaned to you with a very, very little interest or whatever. Well, they get the money, they get a chance to improve themselves. Right? Of course, a country can do bigger things. An individual only do small things. However small that thing is by nature the same thing. Am I right?
Yeah.
To care for others. Right?
That's the important thing.
In our world, in our world, even though it's not a jungle, we find a more and more jungle culture there. This is a problem. Okay. All right. So today, with my dear friend Joe Gardner, we try to see the common ground, what Joe Gardner is doing with the Meals on Wheels, and China as a government is doing with investment to the Asian nearby countries on less developed countries, to see what they can do to prosper themselves. So let's take a very short moment now. When we come back, we will continue with my dear friend Joe Gardner, please. Hello, my dear folks, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show. As a matter of fact, this is one of the very grassroots discussions that I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. It is all triggered by the China, the Belt and the Road strategy that initiated by Chinese government to use the surplus money to help with the less developed countries and regions, people over there. That reminds me, of course, I give them 2 thumbs up on that. That reminds me of somebody around us. I have Joe Gardner as a friend of mine who is so engaged in himself. He makes no money, no nothing on that one by doing the program called Meals on Wheels, by which they put food in a car to go door to door to the needy families, right? Speaking of the food, you mentioned about Queen of the Valley hospitals. They got the food prepared. Where did they get the food?
From their own kitchen. They've been very kind to Meals on Wheels. Their hospital is very community oriented. And so we have been privileged to work with Citrus Valley Health Partners all this time.
Is there out of their own budget?
Yes, they do. They say they subsidize a great part of the meals program, and we've been grateful for that. And they prepare meals that are specific to a person's diet, especially if somebody has health issues, low sodium or diabetic. It's amazing. It's the whole process is.
Oh, it's not here's the food, you go eat it. It's not that kind of thing.
No, they'll make specific meals for a specific client, a person.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. The reason I'm asking about where food comes from is because of a conversation with a good friend of mine, Chris Shahinian. Okay, he was the former candidate for state senate. We had quite a few discussions, right, about his campaign. And he didn't make it. Doesn't mean that he's not a guy for the job. On the contrary, I feel that exactly he is the guy needed, right? And with him, we're talking about the food situation. And of course, same thing, like I refer him with you when I talk to you. And I refer to you to him when talking to him. Okay, mentioning the Meals on Wheels project, and also mentioned about where the food comes from. He kind of pointed out one thing that opens the window for me almost right away. He says, we do not need food anywhere. right? We act ourselves, and the food is in ourselves, quote unquote, says that in the United States, on an everyday basis, about 51% of food is being wasted.
Yeah.
Being wasted.
I would agree with that number.
Oh, that's a huge number.
It is.
That's a huge. Did a lot of research to conclude it on that number, right? So, in other words, if we could stop the 51% of waste, though, with the food we have, the existing food, we could support another United States.
You probably could.
Yeah, we could. Right?
Right.
Another 300 million people.
Right.
Right. So by that, I mean, what he wanted to do, he wanted to call upon, command, was that let the business owners, bakeries, or restaurants, right, and other fast food, ask them to put the unconsumed food aside in a separate way, in a separate area, or a separate container for people like you, like Meals on Wheels, to come collect them.
Yeah, no,
And
it's not
deliver.
a bad concept.
Yeah, to deliver to needy people. And by doing that, number one, you cut down the waste. Number two, you protect the environment. And number three, you rescue people who need food.
Yeah.
Does that sound, I don't know, sound a suggestion to you, or?
Well, yeah, and there is an organization who does it in a very small way, and it's called the Corey's Kitchen in Irwindale. And what they do is they get the food that's near expiration food from supermarkets,
Yes.
from various food establishments,
right.
and then they warehouse it, refrigerate it, and they try and get rid of it within 24 hours. And it's a remarkable program. They have a lot of volunteers that do that.
It is,
and they
yes.
feed numbers that I heard were 8,000 people across the East San Gabriel Valley. But it happens in a small way. But you're right, it could happen in a larger way.
In a larger way.
To reach out more people.
Yeah, to reach out more people, to get more result,
Sure.
to get more people covered.
Right.
And then, I'll give you an example. Our waste plastic, the bottles,
Right.
are being exported every single day. There are buyers from India, from China, even from Japan for that, constantly.
Valuable resource.
Valuable resources,
Right.
right? Okay, now, if you waste it, throw it in the water, and it contaminates the water, the sea, right? That's why you pack it, you reuse it, you recycle it, and people need that. Same happens with food, right? If the organization could reach out to more suppliers. Say I'm a bakery, right? I make 10 cakes or 20 cakes in the morning, and by the end of the day, I had 2 left.
Right.
So, of course, they do not sell the stale food the next day, otherwise they close business.
Right.
So they have dumped those. Instead of dumping, put it in another box and have somebody pick it up and go somewhere, go to needy families. Might be a kid waiting for a birthday cake.
Yeah. Some school.
Some schools.
Cafeteria or something. Yeah. No, it's a sound idea, and I think it could be done at a broader scale. You just have to get people to participate.
Yeah,
Business
you're right.
owners and organizations.
And
to help
Mr.
coordinate.
Chris Shahinian is advocating for this. And I met with him only 2 weeks ago. He is traveling now, and we'll come back to continue talking about that, how we put together an organization on this, all right, to do it in a larger way with a larger scale, and to probably do it nationally, so that we can even, care for more people, right? To those, Joe, to be honest with you, I would rather bow to them than a politician. How about that?
Oh yeah.
I would rather bow to them. I would rather bow. Here's my salute.
Yeah.
rather than a politician.
Like I tell you, they're the unsung heroes, the people that do.
Yeah, you're right, unsung heroes.
Right.
And especially, I would not bow to those politicians who made the bad laws. And we go back to the starting start of the show today, right? My dear audience, today I'm having a very good time because it is a loose talk, right? It's a free chat with my good friend Joe Gunner. I'm really sharing my thoughts, and I kind of love those things. I promote peace. I promote love. I promote care, right? Because somehow back then when I was little, I went through dog life. I was exiled to about 700 miles out of home. A bunch of us kids were made on our own. We were pushed to the edge of death or. I mean, okay, it caused me tearing. Okay, now, so much for that. I don't want to repeat those. But that one thing, that made the foundation of my mindset, right? I always respect anybody.
You should always remember Jack has a giving heart, and he really cares about his community.
Thank you very much. I respect those who care other people. So thank you very much, my dear audience. Thank you very much for watching. And to you, Joe, thank you very much. Love you, brother.